Hey everybody, this is Scoots. This is a new kind of experimental version of Sleep With Me we've never done before. So welcome. These are just bedtime stories from our podcast, Sleep With Me. And to make them feel fresh, these ones are from a couple years ago. So if you're a regular listener, you might get a refresh. And if you're new, these are just bedtime stories from a show called Sleep With Me. They're strange, they're meandering, they're a little bit different. And all this is made possible by listeners like you, regular listeners like you. And so I just want to let you know that's how we're able to put the show out. And so if you are a fan of Sleep With Me, you listen to it on a regular basis, please consider supporting the show. You get ad-free episodes, you get ad-free story-only episodes, tons of other cool stuff at Sleep With Me Plus. That's sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. But if you're in a position and you have some money every month, or you say, hey, maybe I don't watch that streaming service, I'd rather give it to a podcast, think about your favorite podcast. It doesn't have to be Sleep With Me, and support that podcast. If it is Sleep With Me, I consider supporting the show would be great. But if it isn't, or there's a podcast you listen to way more, brings you a lot of value during the day, please support that podcast. Podcasting is going through a different time right now, and your favorite podcast, the one you get the most out of, could use your support the most. So consider supporting it however they request support. Just check it out, like listen to the show or check out their website, or consider supporting Sleep With Me. If Sleep With Me, you say, oh no, Sleep With Me is the one I listen to the most, sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Thanks. Friends beyond the binary, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's time for the podcaster who just clapped almost silently. I don't think you heard it because I'm clapping because you're here. And I'm clapping for two reasons. You're here. I'm getting to greet you and welcome you in. And then I'm going to go off topic and get mixed up. But really, I slapped my hands together as gently as I could, but it still made a sound. So that's not like when you do something just for symbolism. I was doing it really out of excitement. And then I said, slow it down. Don't, if you've lost track of what I'm talking about or you're confused already, that means you're in the right place because it's time for Sleep With Me, the podcast that puts you to sleep. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots. This is a quick message here. If you get a lot out of Sleep With Me, if you're a regular listener, you like these new things we're trying out, like the story-only version of the show. If you're new, don't worry about any of this. But if you're a regular listener of Sleep With Me, or you're a regular listener of any podcast, if you have a favorite podcast, and it's not Sleep With Me, that's totally cool. If you have podcasts you listen to way more, or you get way more value out of, I totally understand that. Consider supporting that podcast. Podcasting as an industry is kind of going through a weird phase right now. Direct support from listeners is going to be, it seems like it's going to be the future of most shows. And so consider supporting the podcast you really love. And you could do that. You could find out, you could listen to the show and see how they ask to be supported. Or reach out to them and say, hey, how can I support you? Or if you can't afford, a few dollars a month, you say, hey, how else can I support you? But if Sleep With Me is the one, Sleep With Me Plus is the best way to support Sleep With Me. Sign up for Sleep With Me Plus. Not only you get an unbelievably sweet, different ways to listen to the show, but it's a huge help for us to be able to do stuff like this. But yeah, think about what your favorite podcast is, and then go ahead and go to their website, or if you already know how they like to be supported, support that show. Thanks and good night. All right. Hey, welcome to North Pole Train Tours. We've been trying to take all the train tracks, technically not all of them, because some of them are top secret, but to take everything here at the North Pole and use it for more than one purpose. And that includes maybe one day opening up the North Pole to tours. And so today we have another special tour. Thank you for settling into your seat. We do have a couple welcome things for you to enjoy. This is a tea cart here, and but it's also, you could have some cocoa, you could have some tea, just some water if you want. And later on, you have an option. This is a warm service, or a cool water service, but we will have nog later, other options. And, we have some sugar cookies and cookie alternatives, sugar-free cookies, gluten-free cookies, and just some candy canes. However, they are delicious. Oh, boy, you could try all of them. You don't have you can have one of each, but you're going to see at the station as we begin to pull out, that is, now we don't normally glorify Santa too much here at the North Pole or all of us elves. But this is a really special place, and occasionally we need a statue, and this is our, North Pole main station. And I guess because this is one of the trains, not that you're on, but that comes into the station that is one of the ones that is regularly used by non-North Polians, or North Poles. They say, if you're a resident of the North Pole, what do you call yourself? We call ourselves North Poles. And people have a laugh at it, but normally people don't ask anyway. They say, oh, you're an elf. But, when we practice language, because some of us use different language apps, like learning the languages of the world, important part of our jobs, but it's also enjoyable. We try to, we say, oh, yes. We're North Poles. I don't know if that's official, though. But that's just it's in popular usage here at the North Pole, or I guess it would be in popular usage if it was something that came up a lot. All that said, you're seeing a giant statue of Santa Claus holding a hand with an elf in triumph, and Santa is pointing off in the direction of where the sun would normally set. Well, actually, exactly where the sun would set here on the evening of the 25th, correct? Because that's like when Santa says, I'm going to bed for a while, a long winter's nap. And you can kind of see that Santa's shoulders, if you really look closely, are a little bit slumped, but the joy and relaxation on both Santa and the elf's face is very, the kind of reaction you have after a satisfying work season. Now, you're going to be noticing now you can't see these out the windows because there's also a walking path. But we're going through, we're going to take one right turn and then another right turn, then a left turn and a left turn, then a right turn and a right turn, and a left turn and a left turn, as we work our way out of this, out of the North Pole. That's also because of existing infrastructure. I find it very relaxing because the train would already have to go slow anyway because we're leaving the station. There's residential area. So we're weaving in between residential areas and some, guest areas, guest facilities. And also we're going, we'll be underneath some buildings that were built on top of this. And then we're going to do a left, but instead of two lefts, we're just going to make one left, and we're going to go on a long stretch. Now, if you're walking outside, it would kind of show because you could kind of notice that a lot of our we do a lot of things where we have a park on top of stuff. And so above the train tracks, a lot of the times we have, if we're not underground or there's not already something above us, we do have these greeneries covering, particularly here, because it reduces sound and, the train does run on electricity, but in the past it did not. And so these greeneries, it's a bit of an arch or a bit of a dome, not a dome, a ceiling, a green ceiling, of course, intertwined with metal, but you can walk up there, and that has a history. It's the North Pole's Memory Lane, And now that is only for North Poleans, because there is another memory, and now we're taking a right and working our way through. That's really for North Poleans, though there is a section of it. So the part where we turned left, but we didn't do two lefts, is where that's North Poleans only. If you go back, that was when we came out of the underground again. But if you went back to where we were making a lot more turns, that is like kind of the more official mythology of the North Pole. And it's not really changed much. And just as an entertainment, like, and also like, it goes along with popular culture. So the official in quotes history of the North Pole is like the world. We try to take all the world's traditions, I guess popular myth, and some less than popular. Myths you may say are less than popular, but what's weaved into the cultures of the world that we serve. And now we're making another right turn, and again, all the history is going on above us. Another thing we are working on, because even though these two sections, we do want to do another walk like this, and now it might not be above any trains, so it's kind of strange that I'd be telling you this, but there's a lot of repurposing going on of train trestles, and we love that kind of stuff. We take inspiration from the world sometimes. But we'd like, once we've established a location, we'd like to do something with some of the timeline of the public timeline. Again, not just pop culture, because there's a lot of parts of our North Pole timeline that that you might be that might be news to you. And it is all part of this place we're going eventually as we make another turn again. We've got two more turns before we enter north. What I guess I should prepare you for is a train tour through North Pole Park. And this was something we had a lot of. This is something that's been a long time coming, but a long time avoiding, which was a theme park and a celebration in a place for people to come to the North Pole. Now, you do have the option, like with these train tours, to actually experience the real North Pole. And, elves, we're mammals too. Maybe you didn't know that. So we do share a lot of mammalian traits with human beings. And, there's human beings that are part of the North Pole. But, so we all have strong feelings, right? And not all those, those feelings are real. But, we also have to, so, there's always been a vision for a long time to have a theme. We don't want to use the word theme park just because that is a loaded term up here. But I mean, I'm here to give you a tour. I'm not here to pander to the North Poleans. This will not be a train tour geared towards elves, but people could come on it. But so it's basically a theme park, because the thing was, we just can't have people running around the North Pole, because there's work to be done, and also there's stuff that things, and it also is like our job to keep the mystique. That was another very strong concern. One, why do people need to come up here at all? None of their business. Keep it a fantasy, keep it like let them project their own thing onto the holiday season. Why? And so we took those, and we finally are about, now we're not open. And we don't have opening dates, but you're going to get to see some of the things that are under construction, some of the things we're working on here. And I think it's very exciting because, again, it's to celebrate, I don't know. And a part of it is what would, like in a both, I think it's creative because they say the people, the pro North Pole Park, which say that people want a fancier name. So maybe it'll change. I don't know. But the creative constraint of both retaining the mystique of the North Pole in a way that gives people what they would expect, but also surprises them and delights them with things they don't expect. So that's kind of like those are twofold mission of designing the park. And we're going to make another turn. And of course, you say, well, are these parks influenced by, and we say, of course, yeah, we're building on what people may already know or have experience with at different theme parks in down in the southern world. So we're taking a turn here. And we're going to come through, and now we're coming through, and there's going to be, now we actually control the windows of the train for this part because there are things that you can't see and that are still under construction. Those are just construction walls on the one side. What you're going to notice out here is this great, now this is an area of contention, but, a big part of the North Pole is the North Pole region and the geography. So you're going to see a gigantic mountain range. It is not real. It is but it is, isn't that amazing? And it is kind of the popular mythologized kind of style of mountain range. I've heard it called Purple Mountain's Majesty. But it is more of a granite. It has a very Yosemite type influence and, kind of jutting rocks and a lot of flowing water. We already have the waterfalls, and then you're going to see two different things on the mountain moving, in addition to the waterfalls. And actually, our train will be a third thing moving as we will eventually go around. And then, spoiler though, we're going to come through a waterfall tunnel. So that's why we're making this turn. And you're going to kind of see. Now, again, from this train, you really can't see very much of the park. The mountain range is on both sides. And then another thing you're going to notice versus theme parks in your world, for the most part, is that this mountain range is this is a fully themed range because of the thing that it would have been so intrusive on the residents of the North Pole and the people working there to just have it be like the backside of it not be themed. I guess if you were using your kind of terminology down there. But yeah, there's an alpine, there's a lift that goes up to an alpine, like a coaster type ride. And there's also a river ride or a rafting ride that goes through as well. And the idea is that those are brightly, so there's actually, I guess if you count the gondola lift up to the alpine ride, and those are actually the cars being lifted. So it saves, the people don't have to get off the lift and then get back on their car. It's all integrated. So it really is only one attraction, though it seems like it's two, is like those are brightly lit or brightly colored and at night brightly themed. It just kind of fit the situation, but also because, if that's the perpetual motion idea. I don't know, I'm still writing this tour. Kinetics, I think, is what the people that are designing the park would say. Kinetic motion is important because it's feeling something. You got the water, then you have the boats in the water, you have our train, you have the gondola looking, then you have the alpine cars. And I guess another part of the kinetics is the sounds of the people having fun. So that's exciting. Now we're going through a tunnel here, and you're going to see some beautiful mural work that's been done. And again, some of these murals, these you can kind of see. Some are complete and some are incomplete. And a lot of them are showing kind of glamorizing, you see the wildlife of the North Pole and different real mountain ranges. And it's just meant, we're just going through and we're going to exit in a waterfall here. Is just again to remember that this is a real place you're in, even though this is a fantastical view. The North Pole is real. Your North Pole Park is kind of a fantasy interpretation of it. I don't know. Again, I'm just like giving a tour to you, and yeah, now we're going to go through this waterfall. And we're going to start to head down, and this would be where our train would be most visible. And you could kind of see the gondola is now going over us. We're kind of working our way down, and the Alpine car will go by. And you could even, if you go to the other side of the train and look down, you'll even see part of the river raft ride. Now, none of this is actually, some of it may be being tested. I know that they're all running. But part of that, now we're going to take, as we come here, we're going to take a turn, and now this was another big debate of breaking the illusion versus not breaking the illusion. But this is like a break in the illusion, because we said, well, the train goes through the whole park anyway, so, what is, so the illusion would already be broken repeatedly. And we said, what if there was a way to break the illusion without be like, okay, we understand. We're all reasonable people here. You've paid to come into this park. So this again was a very discussed, but we said, well, what if it titillates you for some things later on? Which are parades. That's another part of these kind of parks. And so first we're going to go through this giant sculpture here. And again, even though what's interesting about this sculpture is it's a very shimmering sculpture that's meant to play with the sun. It's got glass and metal and flowing water. And this sculpture is just barely visible from some of the actual the attractions, and then the light of it is plays like almost like light off the water on some of the mountains. But this is how in depth we said, let's really go for it. So we're going through the sculpture, and you're going to kind of see here. We're first going to go into two areas, which you'll notice. This is an outdoor area. It's covered though. And these are where some of the floats are for the daytime parade. And the first one you're going to notice there really well is Rudolph, of course, jumping forward with Rudolph's nose so bright. And then kind of behind Rudolph, like the fog parting. And there are motion and light aspects to that. And then there would be like on the back is a ice skating thing, which again is what is it? And I say, yeah, this is kind of what people expect with these parades. And actually, but the ice skating thing, yeah, that's at the very beginning, the end. But in the middle, where the clouds are, that is actually a trampoline for some aerial performers. And then again, like there'll be other, we will change out the floats we show, but now we're going into the dark because we have a nighttime parade, of course, and you're gonna see some floats. There's a transition period where we let your eyes adjust to the darkness. And these, you're going to start to see, these are very powerful holiday lights, LEDs, everything you have going. And those are bear cubs. And they are kind of, light up a bear cub. So they're not exactly biologically accurate, but they are so cute. Oh, are they? And there's going to be other, like these bear, and then you look at, as we've been in this corner, a giant mama bear. And the bear cubs are going to be automated to run around the mama bear. And at some points, even the mama bear, we can't do it during this, but the mama bear can stand up on her two legs. And yeah, the bears, you can see they can offer different, they're all different colors, and there's a lot of action that can be, light, the technology we have access to is not that different than Southern technology. But so that's, of course, it's just something to look forward to, and then it'll have the times of the parades as you're taking the train. So you say, oh, I want to go on that. Like, I want to see those parades later. So the next thing we're coming up to, we're kind of cutting around. We went through one area. And this section of the park that we're working on is kind of like it's going to be known as Santa's Workshop. That's the section of the park, which all of us elves have a laugh about because we say, well, this really means where we all work. But it's going to be an area, and now it's not complete. It's still under design and construction, but there are some areas here that are complete. And of course, you may smell rain. There are reindeer here, and that's a big part of it. Real reindeer. Actually, like, this is where a lot of now, just to spoil a little bit, these will be retired reindeer that worked with Santa. Just because we don't want to, this is work, we're walking around with southern worlders, and maybe being petted or, showing, there'll be a show. Now that arena is not complete. But that's behind that big facade that looks like a kind of glorified. It's not even a facade. It actually is like a three-quarter building. But that opens up, and it does kind of like evokes a working stables, but gigantic. And then on this other side, these more industrial style buildings, but again, with kind of a North Pole touch that kind of unifies the two styles. You see, okay, those look like they were designed by, and they were designed by one of our more famous architects, Kanda. But Kanda, anyway, I don't want to get too, because I haven't written out, I don't have all the facts. But so on this side is, of course, where the sleigh would be. And this attraction is going to be what, of course, people have been looking forward to their whole lives, and especially even with the modern holiday films, Santa's sleigh. And we can just base this on what worked in the past and what worked in the present and what we think will work in the future. So a lot of people would want an interactive experience that is available after the ride, as well as like a lot of stuff explaining the actual physics of the actual ride. But this ride is actually, what's really impressive is that a lot of it is built on the real technology. So the pre-show and the queue will be, it will be immersive in a sense to immerse you in the story. I can't give you all the details of the story behind the attraction, but I can tell you that the what it'll involve is, so the pre-show will be preparing you and talking about some of the technology that they can share, leaving out parts, and maybe some things that aren't true to throw off anybody that would say, well, I'm going to make my own sleigh. I say good luck with that. There is magic involved. What was I saying? So building up to that, and then building up to something where you get involved in the story, or you can project yourself into the story, but it won't be interactive, and it will be exciting. And then the ride itself, the ride system, we made it so it's a very thrilling, but available to all, and that it actually has real motion versus a motion simulator. But it actually, it has real motion within a motion, the vehicles can move as well, and a lot of real sets, but then some illusions. And it will be a really, really fun attraction. And then again, people said, well, can it be changed around? We said, no, this is a ride that should be just thrilling enough for almost everyone, with the exception, toddlers and under probably shouldn't ride it. Or people, I don't know. I'm not in that department, but thrilling enough is that everyone's going to want to ride it, that qualifies to ride it over. So the ride itself, in addition to the story and the effects, will be thrilling in a way. So now our train is going to curve. I kind of, I get to control the speed of the train so I could over-explain things. But so now we're going back. We're making a little bit of a turn. And we're going to see the loading area and the starting areas for the raft ride that we saw earlier. And the raft ride is actually based on, like, what a lot of people might not realize is that we do, and you were on the other tour where we talked about some of the geothermal elements of the North Pole that maybe people don't understand. So, so this is showing. This will technically be you're on a raft that's meant to transport in the ride. You're transporting presents, or you've gotten accident. I mean, it's very thinly veiled. But the build up for this ride will be that there's some sort of external event, and you're getting in these rafts that are normally, they say, well, we're testing it out for human transport. We usually transport presents. In reality, it's and you can learn the real history, is that, that's the way we transported parts, raw materials, and still do in places where we can keep the water from freezing, either due to geothermal or just natural, or during that time of year. We say, okay, well, we know these months we could move raw materials or via aqueduct or canals so that, or, of course, ideally natural rivers and streams. So this one's very, very something you can expect, but it should have some things you don't expect, where you of course, you go, okay, this part of the, this part's closed kind of thing. And there are, also, I'm not supposed to talk too much about this, but of course we've created some antagonists for the North Pole, and that'll be part of the story for the park. And those antagonists will be involved in this ride as well. Not all the rides. Now we're turning out into an area, and you're going to kind of see an area, and it looks like a humongous playground. And you're going to see netting and towers and slides. And that is a kind of a playground. It's a training area, an elven training area. And there's different stops and activities. Now, you don't have to overtrain. It is based on a lot of real training that we elves do, depending on our positions and our work tasks, as well as just overall wellness practices. But mostly it's a place for, younger children or older children to run around and climb and slide on stuff. And there's a lot of natural features there, too. Of course, you notice that we've got a lot of trees at this park, and a lot of trees that are hopefully going to grow in. And, of course, a lot of it is made to be hardy for this area. But, again, with some of the geothermal activity, you'd be surprised. And a lot of the things from the garden that you went to, maybe you didn't see. Can't remember what we saw, if we saw any tree farms. But, yeah, like a lot of that's provided through the gardens that you visited. And some of the decorative aspects of this park will also be. And you can even see that now because we're going through an area. Now, this is actually like a kind of a food hall. We're just seeing the outside of it. But it's based on some of those gardens. That giant mural on the wall there is to indicate, this is to celebrate some of the parts of the North Pole that, the gardens of the North Pole and some of those, all the production. And this will be an interesting food hall because there'll be food stalls and places to eat. There'll be performances. There has been some debate about working with the people from the Dickens Fair to do something like that there. But for the time being, it's just going to be, you can eat some delicacies that North Polians enjoy, as well as foods that you may find traditionally at a theme park, or, a little bit better tasting and stuff, as well as a lot of dessert areas. And now that's like a time if you would like some nog or another little snacky poo. We have that here. And now we're turning and you're seeing another part of the park here. And this is a part of the park that there's still debate going on. But when it was designed, and I think as it will go forward, is that you while you're walking at the park, not that far out of Santa's North Pole, there's just this large tunnel that has fresh steam. It looks like the tunnel just opened up. And we're trying to, the main concern was like that it doesn't feel too intense. So that's, again, like a decision that, is beyond me. But that it'll be an unlabeled thing, but maybe there'll be, the best bet, I think, is that there'll be play actors or performers there encouraging or going through, maybe even, this was a strongly held debate, hiring child actors to also express common feelings, and then having, people said, I don't know, is that okay to do that? To say, oh, okay, well, let me show you. Let's go through there together. But once you go through the tunnel, you'll go into a land that is themed around, and I have to be delicate about revealing too much, some of the North Pole antagonists. And this will have popular culture in mind, but also believe it or not, there are antagonists in the North Pole. And some of them, some of them live in the southern world and some of them live in the North Pole. But so that's like another balance we're trying to strike is, but there isn't a very common thread. Recent films some of them have touched on that, but is to kind of we're essentially basing it on the reality for us, and so it's a difficult task for all of us here at the North Pole and the creative teams behind the park, but creating something that is based in real antagonism, but making that like fun and making it into an accessible myth that you could participate in. And so the first ride would be, you could kind of see down. You saw the tunnel with the steam coming out. And it's, again, trying to balance, not saying, well, we're going to have all ages here. We don't want anyone to come to the North Pole. So it may be an idea of like building FOMO to go there. But one of the things is going to be what was traditionally a dark ride. And this dark ride will be like kind of a tongue-in-cheek, like poking fun at actually North Pole Park. It'll be a dark ride created by the antagonists in the North Pole, where they're like celebrating their way of life and kind of saying how we impact them. So kind of creating in a fun way, saying, oh, they're working together in a heroic way against the North Pole influence, and not in a way that's based in truth, I guess is what I'm saying. Not in a way that, and again, this is a very delicate balance, in a way that's very fun from their perspective, but also true without making fun of them, because it is a fiction. So it'll have a lot of robotics, and it will have live performers, which we feel like is important. But this one will be a all ages, like slow moving system so that anyone can ride. And it won't be frightening except for people that maybe are bringing their own assumptions. It'll be, again, like very carnival celebration of what they would have, because I guess I can tell you this part. It says approved, is to say, like, this is like they're like a county fair for where the all antagonists are kind of celebrating. And I could even tell you that what they're celebrating is that this year Christmas got canceled, and they're having a fair about that. I can say that. So it'll be really fun. It really will be fun. And it will exit this one, like I haven't told you any about this, but it will exit in a themed gift shop with even also a food stand, and like so that they're celebrating their foods, is celebrating and toys and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, I think it'll be fun. And then another attraction that they're attempting to work on. Oh, no, I guess I'm not allowed to say that. So they are working on multiple attractions, and there'll be like 1 or 2 time filler attractions that little kids could go on in maybe a show, so that this would be its own little land. And again, it doesn't have a title, and there is another exit coming up here. And we're going to go through, we're kind of going over it and down. Now, this land is very, very under construction. It really doesn't, we've just started work on it, but this is to celebrate all of the humans in the North Pole area, or in the Great North, or whatever you would call it. Not just within 10 or 20 miles, but within, a very great distance and throughout history. So the first peoples that were here, all the way through, like, people in, like, so some of it will be celebrating the first peoples and their cultures and their ways of life. And you can kind of see we have the kind of land, the areas sketched out. Like one of the areas is the coast there. And also practical things that we're learning. So then there's like the working peoples of the current, over the last 200 years. And celebrating the working peoples, like the providers, the fisher people, and the scientists, a lot of different things this is an area full of potential, I guess is what I'm saying, and of potential, like one of the only debates was like, oh, should there be a human-based area? And the people said, well, the humans are the antagonists, and they just put them in the antagonist land. But, we said, well, okay, let's be realistic here. So again, this is an area that's still kind of modeling and being designed. Because they said, well, why would humans want to visit a human? Like, it was so, okay, well, there's going to be, I know for a fact there's going to be a very fancy seafood restaurant overlooking this waterfront. That's the only thing you kind of see. And then there's going to be the waterfront. And then there's also going to be, there'll be this is kind of doesn't quite fit, but they said, okay, what's the main attraction? And it's going to be a sledding ride. And now a little bit different from our alpine coaster style ride. This will be real snow and real ice, so this is a big vision, and they're still testing out the ride vehicles outside of here. So they haven't even built it, but with real cold, and again, real sets, because they said, okay, we're going to keep combining this idea of story and thrills. So that'll be, I guess, that. And then, of course, there should be some things to draw people in at a distance. There'll be the waves crashing, and then there'll be seafood, like a fancy seafood restaurant, and I know like other seafood options, and probably some non-seafood options. And then again, a lot of history, which we want to do in ways that are respectful to everybody and that celebrates it. And I'm kind of realizing that this tour, we're over what time I was supposed to have you delivered back. So I'm going to show you one more area of the park, and then maybe you could return for another tour, because there's one more area of the park we could visit, which is, now this is interesting, so be ready, but we're going to go through these, like these mountains that separate this human-based area into an area that, again, there's not much construction going on, but that's meant to celebrate, and where we will work with actual human Southern companies, Southern world companies, to celebrate pop culture Santa. So Santa and pop culture. And so this will be because we said, again, we have to say, one of the things was give people what they like expect, but give it to them in an unexpected way. And we said, well, we can't ignore. So there are other lands like more influenced by Santa and pop culture. But we said, well, what about this popular version of Santa or this popular version? Is there a way? Or so we're still working on those deals with intellectual property, they call it. But then there'll also be things you would just expect at the North Pole. So this would be more of your areas where, like, candy canes. One of the things people were thinking about is like Santa getting ready to work with like kids telling Santa what Santa wants for Christmas and those kind of things. Not so this would be full suspension of disbelief and reality, while like and not our reality. So another thing that we're struggling with as North Poleans, because some people say, but this isn't what we have. This isn't our world. So, and again, which, like a lot of fans of Hollywood, so should we have a red carpet in a movie theater? And then what movies, would it be a movie theater like the ones in the theme park where there's all movies you could just go and stand around and look at? Would it be some sort of 3D movie or highlighted movie? Or would it be a ride, like another attraction, like a dark ride or some other type of attraction? I mean, I think the biggest thing is going to be the food is going to be very popular. So this would be like the place to get stuff that you would already expect. And this would be the only place you would get to interact with Santa Claus. Now, I have to tell you that it wouldn't be like, I mean, not to spoil it, wouldn't be the real Santa Claus. So we're trying to figure out an audio, like an animatronic or robotic Santa, or you're looking in on Santa getting ready, or a video chat. So it's like, can we do some sort of attraction like that? Or, I mean, I think another version of things we're working on is like something based on what was the, because, but the intellectual property holders don't necessarily want to do this is, what was true and what was incorrect about that film. So, I don't know. And then having maybe a show. And I guess the main intention of this land is to celebrate everyone's assumptions about the North Pole, because they're not here to be, they're not here to be lectured or said, well, those are all wrong. All your assumptions are incorrect. And that's a way to do it where we have some context where we say, well, okay, we're through this intellectual property, these films or these specials, But I guess it's difficult because we have a lived reality up here, right? And so not everybody's in a hurry to say none of that's even accurate. We see, don't you like it anyway? Even though it's not accurate, that was pretty entertaining. And some people say, no, I wasn't entertained at all. So I guess the intention was to set out to create a land specifically to deal with those objections. Say, okay, well, that's what the purpose of this land is, not to be realistic. None of the North Pole Park is, So it's just, I guess it's one thing or the other. We're all doing our best to enjoy it. And I really appreciate you coming on this tour, and I hope you'll join me for the rest of the park. I know you've fallen asleep. I didn't even notice that. So that's good that you're resting, and then you could just rest. I've stopped the train, but I've got the train still having emotion, so you feel like you're on the train. And then I'll take you on the rest of the tour after you've rested, because you had that cocoa and that nog. And I'm sure you have visions. Maybe there's a part of the land with sugar plums coming up. I don't know. I don't remember, but I'm glad you're here with me. I appreciate it, and I'll see you I'll see you soon. All right, I want to thank everybody who became a patron recently. Jesse, Prashana, and Darpan. Thanks. Good night. Kelly, Adelaide, and Kaylee. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Dean, Daniel, and Mateo. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Hannah, Holly, and Danny. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Marianne, Jordan, and Tasha. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Martha, Tom, and Barbara. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Emily, Ivan, and Camilla. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Tracy, Amanda, and James. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Vera, Martha, and Emily. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Elise, Yoshi, and Alan. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Evelina, Pauline, and Eric. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Kelly, Andy, and Jenna. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Maureen, Derek, and Jesse. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Brett, Jonathan, and Sierra. Thank you. Thanks, and good night. Lauren, Arn, and Eve. Thanks, and good night. And Valerie and James. Thank you. Thanks, and good night for the support. Sleep With Me exists as a free podcast. Get people to support the show directly on Patreon or our sponsors, and we grow this podcast by people spreading the word. So I couldn't do it without all of you, and I'll tell you more about our referral program coming up here. Thanks. Hey, everybody, this is Scoots with a tuck you in message here for our bedtime story podcast. We're trying out, and I kind of said this, free way to support Sleep With Me and bedtime stories from Sleep With Me is join our referral program, sleepwithmepodcast.com/refer, R-E-F-E-R. You get rewarded for introducing people to a free version of Sleep With Me, including access to Sleep With Me Plus. But most of all, just think about what your favorite podcast is or one of your favorite podcasts, and then support that podcast. It doesn't have to be Sleep With Me, but just to support your favorite podcast, because they could use your support right now. And if you decide, Sleep With Me is actually my favorite podcast, well, wow, blushing, seriously, even though it's imaginary here in this context, and support it at sleepwithmepodcast.com/plus. Or listen to a show you love and see how they want to be supported. Thanks.